What is up, guys? My name is Michael Ortiz Jr. I'm the owner of Massage Customs, massage therapist since 2006. And welcome to the show that doesn't have a name because I just do this for fun. I am here today with Julie Succo, and she is a licensed registered dietitian nutritionist. And I wanted to have her jump on this call with me today. She's a client of mine, and we talk about nutrition in the session, and it's so interesting to me. Especially since I've been reading this book called Limitless, that he talks a lot about food, fueling the brain. So it kind of got me like sparked into like the power of food, right? So I'm like, do we have to jump on a call? Julie, thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So one of the biggest questions that I get, and probably that I had in the beginning too, is what is a registered dietitian? What is it exactly that you do?
Okay, I'm so glad you're asking this question because a lot of people, will have some confusion over that as well. So as I was mentioning before, my credentials are registered dietitian nutritionist, licensed dietitian, and certified diabetes care and education specialist. So that registered dietitian credential, essentially, you're required to go through, a program at university. I got a bachelor in science and nutrition science. I did an internship that focused on community nutrition, clinical nutrition, and food service. And after I'd completed that and my degree, I was able to sit for the exam to become a registered dietitian.
Okay. What is the difference between a registered dietitian and then somebody who would just be called like a nutritionist or like a nutrition coach? I think is really popular right now.
Right. There are a lot of health coaches out there. So
health coach.
With the registered dietitian, you'll know that, like I said, they'll have, a bachelor's degree of science and nutrition science, at least. Actually, beginning in 2024, they're going to require dietitians to have a master's in order to sit for the exam. So that is, coming down the track there for future dietitians. But yeah, so when you're working with a registered dietitian, you know that they have, completed that academic program, they've completed an internship, and then they've passed also the, a rigorous exam showing that they have, the knowledge to be that nutrition expert or that nutrition professional. Whereas with someone who's a nutritionist, you might not know exactly what their education or what their training or the criteria was to get that credential. So you could have a nutritionist who went to school and got a bachelor's degree, but just didn't complete an internship or hasn't sat for the exam, or you could meet a nutritionist or health coach who's maybe done, a 6-week online course that, got them a certification. So that's why it is important to, ask about people's credentials, understand, what they're qualified to do and what is inside their scope.
You know how many people ask me what my credentials are?
A lot?
0.
Or okay.
Nobody. Not ever. They've never even asked me if I completed massage school.
They're just like, yeah, we're good here.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, okay, I'm sure you probably did. Maybe. I don't know. I just think it's funny, at least in my field, it's like a lot of people are really about licenses, but like nobody asks. But I do think like the education level and what you do is a major factor, right? Like that's the main difference, right? Is the education level.
I agree. I really agree. And also for me and my experience, I felt like my bachelor's degree in nutrition science gave me a great foundation for, being in healthcare and being a nutrition professional. And the internship, that's where I learned to be a dietitian, was in my internship and that hands-on experience, working in the hospital setting, working in the community setting, or working in food service. So I really do think that piece is important as well to the education and the experience.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm super glad to have you here. Listen, let me just get right into it because I have this question.
The burning question.
Really bothers. This is the burning question. It's the number one question I have. Why can't anybody agree on whether eggs are healthy or not? Like what? They're like 1 year they're healthy, the next year they're unhealthy. What is the deal?
I actually love this question because it's been coming around, even like I was just mentioning being in my internship. Like I've been getting this question since I was in my internship. So the thing about eggs they'll get a bad rap is that the yolk. that is where it's going to have some cholesterol. And it does have about, around 50%, depending on the size of the egg, of like the recommended daily cholesterol. So people
One
will
egg?
go, yes. Okay. But however, they're also extremely nutrient dense. They're a great source of protein. They have essential, the essential aminos in just the right ratios. They also have B vitamins and other antioxidants that, have, excellent properties for, protective towards the eyes. So when people will come to me and, maybe they have high cholesterol or they have current concerns about cholesterol, I'll say, and they ask about eggs, I'll look at like what other high cholesterol foods could be in their diet, because I would rather see them eliminate like fried foods or, processed foods, things like that, that are that,
Right.
that type of processed higher cholesterol foods, and then choose this nutrient dense egg. The American Heart Association actually, says, hey, an egg a day can be a part of a heart healthy lifestyle. Because another thing to think about,
I have 3 a day, 2 to 3 a day. Is that too much?
well, the thing is, how's your cholesterol? If your
I
cholesterol
don't,
is within like normal limits, and you don't eat a lot of other high cholesterol foods, you don't have like a family history of hypercholesterolemia, you're probably okay.
and
But
you said, so like fried foods are high in cholesterol. What else is high in cholesterol?
so like our high cholesterol foods are going to be like processed meats, fried foods or fast foods, a lot of desserts, organ meats, some shellfish as well. But a lot of it, what I see people getting the cholesterol from, is a lot of the fast food and the processed foods and the convenience foods.
Got you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Because I freaking love eggs, dude. Like,
I will say
lot.
like one more thing why eggs might get a bad rap, or there are people that do have allergies, to eggs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be another situation where, of course, in that case, that wouldn't be appropriate for that individual.
Yeah, my son has a sensitivity or now. Like, I don't know what the difference between a sensitivity and an allergy is, but eggs is on the list for him when we got him allergy tested.
Okay.
I think specifically the yolk.
Was what I would call the trigger food.
Yeah, I think so. Like it like blocks him up. Like he had real bad constipation when he was young. So we got him allergy tested. It's like dairy, wheat, eggs, peanuts is like a level 5. We had to get EpiPens because of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's
so
actually a great point that you just brought up. Like there can be different levels of sensitivity or intolerance or allergic reaction. There might be people that have a sensitivity where they get a skin rash or they have like some GI distress, but they don't go into full on anaphylaxis, where like, when we have a severe allergy, that could be the case where we need that EpiPen.
it's interesting because we got him allergy tested and so we know he's allergic to peanuts, right? And actually we got him allergy tested the second time and they said that the peanut allergy was worse, but he's had peanut butter a couple of times with no reaction. But it was like, like Jif or something like that, not like natural peanut butter. And then he's never had a reaction to peanuts at all. And he's definitely had them on accident, like through a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something.
Right.
And then we were at my spa and he ate 100 grand bar without me knowing. I told him, no, like, look, it's peanuts. And he didn't, I guess, process what I actually said and ate it anyways.
He was like,
and
this
then like
looks
10
tasty.
minutes later, he's like, Dad, my throat is itching. And I'm like, I freaked out, dude. I was like, what the heck, dude,
Like,
did you eat
get
that?
the EpiPen.
I actually gave him lemon, lavender, and peppermint, which is supposed to be good for like reducing those symptoms, and it did work. And that went away really quick, thank goodness, because I did not have the EpiPen on me. I was freaking out, to be honest with you.
Oh my gosh.
But like, why do you, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but why wouldn't he react to something and then to others he would?
That, with the allergies and intolerances, it's so individual, what different people will experience. And there's some people that, like we said, you can have some level of exposure and they'll be okay. And other people that they completely, they cannot at all. So what I see is that it is very individual to each person, how they may react.
Got you. So in my industry, in the massage industry, we talk a lot about inflammation, right? Whether that be of, I don't know, like an actual like swelling and fluid buildup because of a recent injury. But the word inflammation gets thrown around a lot because of like pain and, oh, that you got injured in this area is inflamed. Um, I operate under the belief that if we can reduce inflammation in the body, we can absolutely reduce pain. But I think it's got to be like it starts with food. I believe it starts with what we put into our body, right? Um, do you have any advice on like what type of foods are good for like reducing or preventing inflammation? Because
Yeah,
I think this would be
absolutely.
really good for people's pain levels.
And I agree with you about the inflammation. And there's those times, like you said, where it can be injury where it's that like acute inflammation where it's like, okay, the body needs some of that right now. But I think what we see a lot is people living with chronic inflammation. And I think that is, like you said, I really think that is, behind a lot of the pain and also just disrupting wellness as well. So again, a lot of those same high cholesterol foods, processed foods, fried foods, the added sugar foods. Like I think if there's one thing I could just encourage everyone to take away is really to avoid, those added sugar foods. The recommendation is for less than 10% of our daily calories to come from, added sugar. So it's, of course, we can think about the candy bars and the cakes and things like that. I really work with people on beverages also, because those sugar sweetened beverages can be a big one. But yeah, again, fried foods, processed foods, a lot of those convenience foods, alcohol. And if people do have, particular allergies or sensitivities, those can be their trigger foods also that could lead to that inflammation. But the good news is there's a lot of foods that you can include that are going to help reduce inflammation. So one of these that's recommended
Yeah.
is funny because it's another thing that we've discussed is cruciferous vegetables, like kale and things like that. So
Okay. Let me let me
bring us
just let me just
around
say
to
this
our
real
next,
quick.
yeah.
So I sent her a video the other day from this dude on TikTok. Um, and he was bashing kale. He has a shirt on that says kale is bullshit. And he's like, he talks about kale having like it's not good for you. It's full of defense chemicals or whatever that means. And he's very, very convincing. This is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because there just seems to be so much crazy, like butting heads information, if that's even the right word. It's like this is saying one thing, and then this dude's like, "Oh, kale's bullshit. It's actually not good for you at all."
Mhm.
Anyways, that's what she's talking about when
Yeah.
she
So
talks about the
we're
kale.
gonna circle around back to that kale, but actually like cruciferous vegetables, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, kale, cauliflower and things like that. Also some of the like fatty fish, like wild caught salmon, it's going to be high in the omegas, berries, cherries, bell peppers, mushrooms, green tea, turmeric. These are all going to be some of those anti-inflammatory type of functional foods that you can use.
Okay. Is there certain properties in the food that we're looking for? Like you mentioned omegas. Like I know that's good for inflammation, but like blueberries have like antioxidants. I don't know exactly what that.
Yeah, there's like different, there's different types of antioxidants, or also like you'll hear a lot of times the antioxidants that come from plants, they'll be referred to as like phytonutrients. So these will be compounds, different compounds that when they're in the body and they're broken down, they can have, preventative type of properties or even helpful properties in different metabolic pathways.
But for inflammation specifically, we're not necessarily looking for antioxidants, right? We're looking for more.
They would be like one compound of the food.
Okay, I got you. Very cool. Very cool.
Mhm.
Okay.
Actually, when I used to work in the hospital, we would check when people would come in, there's a lab value. It's called the C-reactive protein. And that was one that we would look at to evaluate people's like inflammations, inflammatory status. So when people would come in and, it would just break your heart because when they were having severe illness, injury, or trauma, their CRP would be just so high, and you knew they were in just a very like acute state where they needed some serious care.
Yeah. So there's actually a test you can take to test how much inflammation there is in the body.
Yeah. So like I said, when I worked in the hospital, I don't see it used every now and then. I do see it in lab values, with patients, in the outpatient setting, but in the hospital, yeah, we would use it. I would see it more frequently, and it's called the C-reactive protein.
I got you. I got you. That's cool. I didn't know that. I might want to take that one day. Dude, my back used to hurt so much. Like, okay, so and this reminds me of, I had this client come in, and he's telling me, he's like, he's in good shape. He is pretty ripped, dude, like muscular guy. And he's talking to me. He's like, I'm super cocky. He's like, yeah, I'm in like the best shape of anybody at the office. Like I got like a 6-pack, like I'm in great shape. He's like, but I'm just hurting all the time. You know, I mean, he's like, I'm just in so much pain constantly. And I'm like, okay, so like, I'm like, bro, what's your diet like? Like, and he's like, dude, that's the thing. He's like, I'm ripped, but I eat McDonald's like every day. And I'm like, bro, I
So
can't out
yeah,
massage a McDonald's diet, my guy. Like,
mhm.
of
That's
course, no wonder you're in pain.
that is like, I love that you just said that. I can't out massage a McDonald's diet. Like sometimes I'll get people that'll come to me and they'll like, be like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's my concern. What supplement can I take?
Yeah,
And I'm like, hey, let's talk about let's talk about what's going on the plate first before we get to that supplement. So I'll say, a supplement won't fix a bad diet as well.
for sure. Yeah, it's just so like, I don't know. That's one of the reasons that story that I just told you is one of the reasons I'm interested in talking to you today as well, because I tell people, my clients, I'm not a nutritionist, but if they're in any type of chronic pain, I usually refer to their diet. I'm like, especially when it comes, if they're having headaches regularly, or like soreness in their back, upper back, neck, shoulders all the time. It's just all the time, constant. I'm like, dude, you got to probably go look at what you're eating,
Mhm.
because um, I did start taking a supplement that I do think helped with my pain, but I did clean up my diet as well.
Mhm.
Um, but I noticed after taking, and it had like more fruits and vegetables in it, to help supplement some of those things that I was lacking in my diet and still am. but I did notice a huge improvement in my pain level after taking it for a couple of weeks. But it was like out of nowhere. I was laying on the couch, and like typically in a position I was in, like on my side with my hand on my head, my neck crank would cause so much pain traditionally. And I'd be sore, like getting up and like achy. And then I just tuned in one time. I'm like, I wasn't at all. And that's when I started getting into like, okay, maybe it's not just I have to push on muscle to help people relieve pain. And so I started telling them to like pay attention to what they're eating. This is
Right.
one of the things I say. Now tell me if this is true, okay?
Okay.
I tell them like, look, pay attention to what you're eating. Pay attention to how you feel after you eat. That can be a good indicator that this is doing good for you or not, right? Because I'll notice after I eat like a turkey sub at Subway, my neck will start to hurt immediately and I'll borderline have a headache, right? And like a chicken sub there will not do it for me.
But for
I'll be fine. And so I tell them like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a chicken. Maybe it's that processed turkey that they have there. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it could be lettuce for you. I don't know. I'm not a nutritionist. You should talk to somebody about it. That's why I tell them. Can lettuce be a trigger?
you could be. Absolutely, it could be.
That's my
Um,
question.
people who have IBS, some of those high fiber foods, different types of lettuce, because there are various types of lettuce as well. Those can be trigger foods for them.
So it
And
could, it could even be healthy foods that are causing people inflammation or pain, like
yeah,
traditional healthy foods.
yeah, let's even talk about like the kale, for example. So I thought the video was funny. I like, his shirt was very catchy, and he has a lot of conviction too.
He
So
has
I'm
a
like,
lot of conviction.
yeah, like, I could, if I rolled across that video, I might be like, and I didn't know, I might be like, yeah, this guy is right. Yeah, I'm
I was
down with
about to cut broccoli out of my diet completely.
it. But I think that there's always a little bit of truth to everything I find. So there are some, properties in the kale or the cruciferous vegetables that could, be trigger foods for people with IBS, that they would need to avoid that. There's also, and I don't know if I'm going to say this completely right, glucosinolate, which is in kale. And interestingly enough, in some research studies, they've shown that when those compounds break down, they can lower inflammation and they can have properties that are protective, against cancer formation. However, there have been people that have said, hey, that those compounds can also impact how the thyroid utilizes iodine. So then they've said, well, could this be a hormonal, could this start affecting things hormonally? I did read up on this because I wanted to know how much truth there was to it. And I found an article from a physician at Northwestern who had said to really have have it impact the usage of iodine and impact hormone levels, the amounts that would have to be eaten would just be like outlandish. That like normal people wouldn't ever consume, a person wouldn't ever consume that amount to start getting those type of symptoms. So again, for most people, these are going to, kale and cruciferous vegetables are going to be totally appropriate foods, but there might be those, individuals who do have, IBS or find it as a trigger food. And when it comes to GI distress, like I'll call it GI distress, intolerances, things like that, I'm really big on elimination diets. And with the elimination diet, I like to keep it really simple. I'll have, if we suspect there's a trigger food, like let's say, nuts, that we could be suspecting nuts as a trigger food. I'll, have somebody for 2 weeks, cut it out in any form, not nuts, not, peanut butter, nut butter, or in any type of other type of dish, trail mix, granola bars, things like that, and record their symptoms. Like you were saying, like, how do you feel? So as we would record the symptoms to see how we're feeling, after we eat certain foods, then we can also be recording when we're not eating these foods, how we're feeling. And I'll have some people that they'll know within like a week or so that they're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling so much better. I have reduced symptoms, I'm having more regular bowel movements. I'm not having reflux, things like that. They'll know pretty quickly if that was a trigger food or not. Okay. But what we'll do is after those 2 weeks, they'll introduce, 1 serving back in, and then again, monitor the symptoms for up to 3 days to see how they, to see how their body reacts to it back in the diet.
Okay. Do you work with anybody with cystic fibrosis?
Not frequently, but I have in the past. Yeah.
I don't want to talk too much about that. A client popped into my head. I'll talk to you about that later. Okay. So speaking of inflammation, gluten's a hot topic. I mean, at least it used to be. I don't know if it's too hot anymore.
Yeah,
Seems like
you're right. It maybe isn't as trendy as it used to be, but it is still a hot topic.
It still is pretty trendy, but like we eat gluten-free bread at my house because my son has the allergy. And so we all eat it. Occasionally we bring in the good stuff. You know what I'm saying? I love gluten. Okay.
I say that, I'll say that too. I'll say, hey, I eat, I eat gluten frequently, but I don't have celiac, and I don't have a gluten or a wheat intolerance either. So it's completely appropriate for me.
I actually think I have a level of intolerance. And I'm sure there's levels to it where I think it does affect my son pretty negatively with blocking him up. Again, he doesn't break out in the hives or anything like that, but he does complain of stomach pains if he eats too much of it. But I think I bloat.
Okay.
Like I retain water. That's a thing, right? Like retaining water. Because I definitely, like, when I'm in weight loss mode and then I have like a sandwich, I'm like, I don't lose weight for like 2 days, 3 days.
So
one freaking sandwich.
So there is different levels, and I see this, in my clinical experience as well, that there's different levels of like sensitivity to certain foods. So, you might have that where you get like the bloating, which the bloating can come from, usually it's in like the lower GI tract when we get the bloating, and it may be gas, just like the microbiota in the gut is just responding to what you've eaten and creating a lot of gas, which that causes stretching in the GI tract, which is really uncomfortable. I went to a talk a couple years ago with the GI doctor, he was talking about the different things that can cause pain in the GI tract. And he actually said that stretching that can be caused by, the creating that pressure in there with the gas, or
Yeah.
when more water is pulled into the GI tract, again, that can lead to some of that stretching. And he said, this still stuck with me, like, a couple of years later, but he said, if we took a scalpel and we cut that same piece of intestine, that person would feel less pain than that stretching from that gas pressure. So
Really?
that's typically what you're probably experiencing when you're having some bloating is, like I said, your microbiota in there having a little response to that. And you start, to feel that.
So does gluten cause, it's an inflammation causer, correct?
It depends on the
Typically.
individual. It really
So
depends
that's what I was gonna ask was, does it actually cause inflammation or negative impacts on the body to everyone, or is it just to some people?
So for individuals who have celiac disease, true celiac disease, these are, my people that I'm working with, and we're not bringing any sort of gluten, bread in the house, or if we do, we're using separate toasters. We're using like shampoo and lotions and things like that are gluten-free, because we don't want them to have any exposure to that. That will start to actually damage the GI tract. And then in addition to just having a really, kind of uncomfortable experience, people can have deficiencies because they're not absorbing the nutrients. They could be having weight loss because they're just not, they don't have that appetite. So if we're true celiac, it's really that we do want to just completely eliminate that gluten. If we see someone who has like a gluten sensitivity or gluten allergy, it may be, limiting it or really trying to avoid it as much as possible. I'll have some people that they'll say, if I have maybe a little bit of gluten here and there, I'm okay. But it's, when they go on a trip or they go somewhere and they're kind of off track and they start having more, the symptoms will start increasing and becoming more severe. So that's when they'll say, okay, I need to start backing down on this again.
Yeah, the cool thing about my son having that is, well, not necessarily him, but I have tried like these sandwiches with like lettuce instead of, or like In-N-Out has the protein style where it's just lettuce instead of a bun. Dude, it's so freaking good.
I love those.
Like I actually like them. I'm going to say at least equal to, like I look forward to like a Jimmy John's sandwich with lettuce instead of bread. I had one the other day. Fire, right? So I don't.
Yeah, they're good.
It's
They're
not
really
a bad.
good.
Yeah, it's not a bad substitute. Plus that crunch. Anyways, are there any trendy diets that you agree with?
That's a hard one for me, because like I was saying earlier, there's usually a little bit of like truth or something good to to everything. But oftentimes I think we take things and like it'll just get like really extreme. Year over year, when we look at different diets, the Mediterranean diet always performs really well as far as people enjoying it, having good health outcomes, and also like healthcare professionals. This is one that they recommend a lot. The DASH diet, it's the dietary approach to stop hypertension. It's quite similar to the Mediterranean diet that's really focused on a lot of produce, high vegetable intake, high fiber, lower fat foods, limiting sodium in the diet. So those, like I said, are traditional ones that year over year are really popular. What I coach to a lot is what I call the 90-10 model. So, I try to just kind of teach people that we're looking for progress. We're not looking to be perfect. And we want to focus more on habits than like following a meal plan. Exactly. We want to create those good habits to have the healthy lifestyle. So with that, I'll, coach people on, how we want to build the plate, with, choosing a lot of high fiber vegetables, balancing, a portion of complex carbs with, some lean protein food. So we'll discuss, those type of things. But like I said, I call it the 90-10 model. So I say 90% of the time we want to practice those, those good habits, stay on our plan, focus on hydration, all that good stuff. 10% of the time, let's have some flexibility. Let's liberalize the diet here and there. And I find that, because typically if we eat, if you're someone who eats 3 meals a day, 10% would be a couple meals a week where you could just, Some of my patients call it cheat meals. I like to call it flex meals or, fun meals or 10% foods. But I think that way it gives like a good balance of still having like some of those foods, staying on track, but then that 90%, if you're really following that, that's what drives the outcomes.
Yeah, I was watching a video the other day where this girl was talking about how she calls it all the time foods and sometimes foods.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I liked that. Like getting away from words like cheat meal or
it's
like the negativity and the guilt around, oh, I'm going to have a
yes.
candy bar today or a slice of pizza or something like that. Not feeling bad and having these negative, oh, I screwed up this week, which I think when you have that mindset, like it leads into more bad behaviors.
I completely agree with that. I totally agree with that.
When's the last time you had pizza, like unhealthy pizza?
I had pizza a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I had pizza a couple weeks ago when I was watching Thursday Night Football.
What kind?
It was pepperoni pizza. And do you know what? This is gonna may sound weird, but you know how like some places you can get the pepperoni pizza and like it'll be in like little they're like little like circles, like little bowls, little dishes. I don't know why I love that type of pepperoni.
I actually agree with you. It seems more authentic. I don't know why.
But I'm not
Where
that
was it from?
particular either.
Domino's?
No, I was out visiting my family in California. So I think it was called Pizza Plus, a place
Like
out
a
there.
mom and pop place?
Mm-hmm.
For sure. All right, that's good to hear. People need to hear this. You're a very healthy person. They want to hear how you ate pizza.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've had cookies this week too.
Oh, snap. So like, all right, back to the diet, the trendy diet things. Like, what are your thoughts on keto?
Okay.
It seems to be, I think keto is like the most popular one, I think, at least recently. I don't know what else is popular right now, but
it is so popular. And I've worked with quite a few people, that have done keto. And I do think there are some good principles of it. I like that it does, because I remember like when I was a teenager back in the 90s, like everything was low fat. So like fat was like, now it's carbs, but back then it was fat. So I like that it's bringing back in the healthy fats because there are healthy fats. The monounsaturated, polyunsaturated fats, those will actually be anti-inflammatory foods and help contribute to a good HDL cholesterol, which helps, balance that LDL cholesterol. So there are, some benefits to bringing in those type of fats in the diet. And it's also keto is very focused on, avoiding the added sugars, which, I'm all about limiting those type of foods. However, a couple concerns that I've had with keto is that it doesn't really seem to, touch on limiting saturated fat or trans fat. And those are things that do, like pull out to me. So like the trans fat, this is a man-made fat that I always tell people, if I had a time machine, I would go back in time and be like, don't do this. Like, just stop. I know it seems like a good idea. It's going to extend shelf life. It's going to be really tasty, but like, just don't do this. That is what I would do with one of the things I would do with my time machine. So, the
trans fat activist. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then the saturated fat, which, comes from a lot of our animal products, which is still, we still do need an amount of that. And those animal products have a lot of other benefits, but like I said, it does concern me that it's kind of like a free for all with the fats. So that's one thing that I'll try to kind of work with people on is choosing the right type of fats, with that, and then balancing it with some other foods. Another thing that with keto, and I know I just keep saying negative things, but one thing I read, when you really do a true keto and you're, the produce is very, very, very low, of any type of, fruit is like almost none. Vegetables, even non-starchy vegetables, are pretty low. So we actually miss out on a lot of our daily vitamins and minerals, like half, if we're, taking those foods out. So it's like a multivitamin would definitely be necessary in that case.
Interesting. Okay. What have you heard of the caveman diet?
I have, but I'm not like super familiar with it. Is it similar to like the carnivore? or like
I'm,
paleo?
probably. I don't.
Okay.
Probably is. Yeah, probably paleo.
Okay.
I guess
I
I
do
don't
like
really.
paleo. I do
You
like the
do?
paleo diet. Yeah, there's some things that I'm a little more like liberal with that, like with grains, but I do like paleo because it's a lot of whole, whole foods.
There's that reminds me of another one. I think it's like Whole 30 or something.
Yeah, the Whole
Have you heard of
30.
that?
Yep, I actually
What
have that book.
is that good?
It's another approach, and it does focus a lot on like whole foods, anti-inflammatory foods, and kind of like balancing things in the right proportions.
So those will be like the paleo and the Whole 30. Is that what it's called? Whole 30?
Whole 30, yeah, I like that one.
Are two that you would possibly for generic people with no
Mhm.
major issues.
Also, like I'm really big on the plate method, and like it probably seems really basic, but it is. That's why it's like so awesome, is because it is basic.
Yeah, I think the simpler the better.
Hmm.
Absolutely. When it comes to pretty much anything. If it's too complicated, I don't think it's going to be sustainable
Right,
for most people. For most
completely.
people,
Hmm.
and
And the
that's what I'm focused on.
consistency, yeah, and the consistency and the sustainability is what gives those, long-term outcomes and helps get us to our goals. So it really is important to, choose a plan that is going to, merge with the lifestyle.
Yeah, I have a huge issue with like the 6 week programs of pretty much any kind, especially 6 week workout programs where you're like crushing it at the gym every day for 6 weeks, changing your diet completely. And none of it is focused on sustainability. Every single person I know, every single person I know who has done a 6 week lose 20 pounds program has gained the weight back every time. There was one person who I think, there's probably some out there, but I don't think the exception makes the rule. She did great for 2 years, and I haven't followed up with her to see how she's doing now. But I mean, we'll say one that I've met who's had any long
I
term success on these programs.
Yeah, so I actually did a 6-week challenge in the beginning of this year, and it was a transformation challenge.
Yeah,
So for me, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. It's the beginning of the year. It wasn't about weight loss because I was like, I don't think I could win this if it's about weight loss. So yeah, it was like a 6-week transformation challenge. So during that time, I was definitely more strict with my diet, but I wasn't like doing anything crazy compared to what I do right now. And I was really, really into the workouts then. I was very, very motivated and into the working out. So for me, it was just kind of like I was almost like taking like what I currently do and taking it to the next level for like 6 weeks. So I think a lot of
yes,
it too is like how you approach it with the mindset.
and
Because
that's go ahead.
yeah, because I think like sometimes if people go into it and you're little like, I'm gonna just train really hard and eat super, super clean, follow this plan for 6 weeks, I'm gonna get to my goal and then I'm gonna party. That's where it's like, oh, okay, we're probably gonna go, backwards from that. But if they can say, hey, what can I learn in these 6 weeks? Like, what things am I gonna apply even with these 6 weeks have ended, so that I can sustain this or, keep going on this path instead of like, okay, it's over. I'm off the wagon. It's time to party.
So that is where my issue lies. Is um, I have no problem with the actual 6 week program to take you to the next level. But it's the people, though, everybody who does it is going from 0 to 100. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not even. I mean, like you got to get to 1, 2, 3. Like you can't just go from 0 to 100 and expect it to be sustainable. In my opinion, you right in your situation were already working out regularly. You were already eating healthy, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And
So I
then you
will,
did
yeah,
something that was a little more intense, or no?
yeah. So I just kind of like stepped things up with my workouts, and I was way more focused on my nutrition. Honestly, I was eating more carbohydrate because I was trying to build more muscle. So I was eating also more frequently during the day, which may seem like not a big deal, but you know how it is when you're working and you're seeing clients and you've got stuff going on. sometimes just to eat 3 meals is hard enough. Then when you're trying to get to like 4 or 5, to get your pre-workout and, post-workout and all that stuff in, it can be a little challenging.
No, my issue is the opposite of that. It's eating less. I don't have any issue eating more.
Okay.
That's not where my issues lie. But okay, so that transitions great into like, how do you recommend people do get started? Because most people who do those 6-week type of programs, like I said, they're going from 0 to 100 really fast. And in my opinion, when you do it that way, I think you can give up anything for 6 weeks and make it happen. But then like, you got to get back to reality. Like everybody's life, I think, is affected when you do these 6-week fad programs, like lose weight quick. That would affect my wife's life. That would affect my kids' life, because I have to sacrifice so much of the time I'm putting in with them to get up at 5 o'clock when I don't normally get up at 5, to eat meals at a certain time, or change my whole diet when the rest of my family's not eating that way. How do you recommend people get started so that it is sustainable?
Yeah. And I do want to just kind of reinforce that, not even just in that like fitness or that gym setting, even in like the healthcare and the weight loss setting. Like I was on a webinar a while ago, and it was with a bariatric surgeon. So it's somebody who works with, does surgery for people, weight loss surgery. And he was saying like, we're really good at helping people lose weight, but we're really struggling at helping people like maintain that weight loss. So that's why I like to start with like, what is the goal? What is the overall goal? If this plan that you're going to start goes well, what does that look like in 3 to 6 months? Is it weight loss? Is it improved mobility? Is it, maybe it's someone who's an athlete. So they're like, hey, I want to, get a PR in my half marathon. What is the goal, overall? And then taking it and going, what are steps or things I can do day to day to get to that goal? So it's like, maybe it is, I want to drop, 20 pounds over the next, 6 to 9 months. Well, what am I doing day to day to do that? Am I getting up and am I having my breakfast? Am I doing weekly meal prep? Am I making sure that I'm choosing the right beverages and staying hydrated? Am I getting in my activity? Those type of things. That's okay. I want to say hi. Can I?
Sorry, my son saying goodnight.
That's okay. I thought he was going to come say hi to us.
No, he's just like staring at me. I'm like, go, bro. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's why I like to kind of guide people to start is, what is that overall goal? Why is it meaningful to you as well? Because I think sometimes also we might get like news, like, okay, well, a diagnosis, or we see a lab that we're like concerned about, and we're like, we need to get this down, but like, why is that important to you? What is that, why is this meaningful to you? And so I'll have some people that'll say, well, it's meaningful to me because I want to be able to be active with my kids or my grandkids. I've had people tell me that I want to be able to go walk the park at Disneyland, with my family. Like, these are really good goals to have. But then, like I said, creating those action steps, those habits, those behaviors that are going to happen every day, every week, that are going to create like that upward spiral to help us get to that goal, and then, the first couple of weeks, you might focus on 2 or 3 habits. And when you feel like I've got those locked in, you might say, what do I want to work on next? What's that next habit that I want to change or incorporate?
Habits are a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our ideas around habits too it takes way longer than 21 days to create a habit. I don't know who came up with that number, but like way longer. Way longer. Oh, 21 days to take a habit. I'm like, way longer. I'm like, in order for something to be a habit, it's automatic. Like, you don't have to think about it. Like, I don't wake up in the morning and I'm not like upset I gotta brush my teeth, Like, I just do it, whether I'm running late for work or not. Like, the brushing of the teeth has to happen, and it's automatic.
Mm-hmm.
My son is 10. We are just getting to the point where brushing his teeth is not a fight. Okay. It's been 10 years. Okay.
He still needs the prompts.
Get in the bathroom and brush your teeth. And I think that is one of the struggles for us as adults, is just like I'm the person to him to say, hey, no, go get in the bathroom and brush your teeth. We as adults, we don't have that person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
Yeah.
we have to be that person that's like, oh, I don't feel like it. Nobody asked you if you felt like brushing your teeth today. Go brush your teeth. Nobody asked you if you didn't feel like sticking to your diet today. Put the freaking candy bar down. You know, like, I think that's probably one of the hardest parts for us, is that we have to be that person for ourselves. And especially if you didn't have a good person like that as a kid, which my parents didn't care what I ate. There was no regulation on food. It was all junk. So it's like trying to create that for yourself is super difficult.
Mm-hmm. I read a meme yesterday, and it was like talking about being an adult, and it was like having the conversation with yourself of, we have food at home. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is like, I like, I know this happens all the time. Like, I'll have so many people that will tell me, yeah, I had my meal prep at home, or I had this, but I just cruised by here, or this was like calling my name. And you're right. It does sometimes just come down to being like, yep, I'm an adult. I'm going to put on my big girl pants and I'm going to go home and eat what I have for my meal prep instead of, cruising through the drive-through.
Yeah. It could definitely be difficult. How much emotional stuff do you have to work through as a dietitian with
Um,
people? Like how much of people's weight loss journeys involves emotions?
some people it's a lot, and some people it's like, just give me the data. So I'll have some patients that they're very data driven, that they're like, give me some calorie goals, give me some macronutrient goals, other things like that. Give me, let's set some different goals here. And they're just driven by the numbers. But I have other people, here's one of my cats here. Hey, buddy. But I have other people that it is so much more about the behavior and, what is going on. And they're really affected by like stress, and things like that, that could be impacting their food choices versus like the actual knowledge. Okay, here we go.
Right.
So, in those type of cases, like even before COVID, like, and I feel like this is coming up more and more, but even before COVID, when they'd poll people, it would look like about 60 to 70% of people would identify as what we would call emotional eaters, which I kind of like hate to say that, like emotional eating, because it sounds like a little dramatic, but it's like, if you're triggered to eat when you're bored, when you're stressed out, when you're upset, when you're, it could even be you're happy, you're celebrating, if you're triggered to eat for a non-food reason, that could, that's, something that we kind of like, I'll say we need to kind of pull that thread there and find out what's going on. And I was saying earlier with COVID, I feel like over the last year and a half, I've seen that kind of increasing, where people have, are saying to me, why do I need a snack every, hour? When I was working in my office, that wouldn't be the case. Or, why do I find myself in front of the cabinets just looking for something and I don't even think I'm hungry? And I think it has to do a lot with like just coping with, different things that's going on. And the food can really be a comfort and, like a go-to kind of coping skill sometimes. So that's when I'll work with people on like, how can we create some non-food coping skills? Or if there are certain behaviors that they find that they're having, like what are we going to do to change this behavior or change this habit, when it's not just about the knowledge?
Yeah. I'm definitely a bored eater. For sure. If I'm bored, I'm like,
Oh yeah. A
look
lot
in
of
the
people
fridge for
are,
nothing. I'm like, wow, I
there's,
just ate like an hour ago.
mm-hmm. That's like, well, mindful eating, that's a whole nother, kind of practice of being, mindful and checking in with ourselves, checking with our satiety levels, our hunger levels, putting the fork down during the meal, really tasting the food, but that, like they say, like that mindless eating, that sometimes it's the snacking or, it happens really easily.
So I've been doing like the intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
Not super strict at all. Like I don't even know what the benefits of it are. The benefit of it for me is the discipline of timed eating. Like I eat at 10, 2, and 6, and that's like, okay, like that's when I eat. Maybe have one snack in between if I maybe didn't have enough to hold me over to the next meal. But that's not really that big of an issue, to be honest with you. I'll tell you why in a second. But the discipline of that is really great for me to just not be just, oh, I'm hungry, I'm just going to eat. I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know if that's right, but it works for
So,
me.
and I really like that you mentioned that too, because that might intermittent fasting might not work for somebody else, but for you, it's not just the intermittent fasting. It's like the kind of the purpose behind it of creating some of that structure and almost like creating your habit or your meal schedule now that you're going to
Yes.
follow automatically and not have to think about it.
Yeah, I know there's all kinds of benefits that people talk about. I don't really know what they are. I'm sure they're great. I don't know. I can do this. And I've realized I could do this because it's 4 hours in between each meal, and it's stop eating at 6, start eating at 10 for me. Minus my coffee. That's where I'm not strict at all. I'm having coffee in the morning. Don't care. Um,
Yeah.
but what was I gonna say? I realized I could do this because even like sometimes at like 7, I'm freaking super hungry.
Mhm.
But sometimes I'm busy, I'm working, I don't get hungry at all. And I'm like, oh shoot, it's like 10:30 already. I gotta eat. Anyways, I had to get some dental work done, and they're like, no eating past 8 o'clock, and my window's at 10 anyways. So like I had my appointment was at 4. So like I didn't eat for from 8 to 4 or 7:30 to 4, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not even that big
Are
of a
you
deal, but
fading?
when somebody tells you you can't, it's
Right?
way worse. It's way
Uh-huh.
worse. I'm like, they're like, you
Mhm.
absolutely cannot have any fluids past 8, or and I did it. And so that's when I was like, okay, that sucked, but like I freaking did it. I can wait till 10, and then at 2, and I can do this. Even if I'm hungry, I can just not eat, Like I just wait till my meal time. I don't know. That worked for me.
Yeah.
That
Well, and
was the
that's what
trigger
I'm
for me.
about is like finding what works for you. And, I'll meet a lot of people and they'll say like, my colleague did this, or my neighbor's doing this, or, so-and-so's doing this. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, that's great that that's, working for them. Is that something you're interested in? Like, what motivates you? What inspires you? What changes do you want to make?
Yeah, that's good. What do you think about intermittent fasting, by the way?
Um,
Have you looked into it at all?
Yeah, I have actually. So, because at first my concern was that, people aren't eating earlier in the day. My concern is that the metabolism isn't really getting started. And what I've seen with the quite a few patients that I've worked with is it's super common to kind of skip breakfast and maybe even kind of like skip lunch or midday meals. And then a lot of people will eat more in the evening time. And then that's when it's like, gosh, I'm not eating that much, but it's the timing, of when they're eating, like after they've done all this activity, that the body will just kind of store that instead of really kick up the metabolism. But with intermittent fasting, what I've seen and read is that if, when you are staying on that schedule where you do start eating, at that time, it will get, things going and the energy back up. But it has shown, they have shown some, benefits with it, I think, with actually reduced inflammation and insulin sensitivity as well.
I was reading something about the insulin. There's a some I don't know what his credentials are, but he was talking about something about like if you eat every 3 hours or less, like the insulin production is really high.
Well,
Like,
if you're eating carbohydrate, anytime we eat carb, the beta cells in the pancreas are gonna pop out, put out some insulin to help lower the glucose. So, if someone is eating, very frequently, every few hours, and they're having carbohydrate foods every few hours, yeah, the insulin response is going to be kind of like what I would call the rolling hills.
is that bad?
If it's a balance, if it's a balanced snack, or balanced, something like, Greek yogurt and berries or nuts, or like a sandwich, a couple pieces of wheat bread, turkey and maybe a side salad. Like if it's balanced like that, we're not going to get the big insulin response if we don't have that really high carb intake.
I got you. Okay, very cool. My next question is, are like okay, Is it possible to like not get sick? Is there like foods that can cause you to be so healthy that you never get sick?
I don't know that we could put out that guarantee that you would never get sick, but there are some foods that definitely support immunity. So, I mean, vitamin C, right? Citrus foods, that's been a very popular one over the years. So citrus foods, berries, even papaya. Actually, your cruciferous vegetables, once again, those are going to be a source of vitamin C, but
What
also
are you calling it? What is it
cruciferous
called?
vegetables.
One more time.
Cruciferous vegetables.
Cruciferous. I
I
never heard him call that
believe,
before.
yeah, I believe like I said, they're all in this family, but I think it has something to do with their leaves. Actually, the leaves form like a cross, will form a cross when you look at it in these
Oh,
vegetables.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But like different, different vitamins, A, D, E, um, those are actually fat soluble vitamins as well, in the body, but like nuts and seeds, they'd be a source of, some of the vitamin E. Vitamin A is going to be like some of our, orange plants,
Okay.
like, oranges, sweet potatoes, carrots, things like that. Vitamin D, that's
Love all
actually
that.
like a really popular, that's vitamin D. I'm surprised how many people I see with low vitamin D, especially out here in Vegas, because it is synthesized through the sun, but to get it synthesized through the sun, you have to be outside in like midday sun for like 10 to 15 minutes a few times a week, like letting your face and letting your hands get exposed, which most people, are wearing sunscreen or covered, or they're not staying outside that long. So that's where we would need to get it from food sources like fatty fish and what.
Question. Are you saying that sunscreen stops the production of vitamin D?
Yeah, so I believe it will block some of those rays that you're trying to get, to synthesize that. That's my
Didn't
understanding. I may need to do a little more research on that, however.
didn't know that.
Hmm.
Didn't know that. Okay. Yeah, I definitely need more vitamin D. I don't like the sun. I don't.
The sun.
I barely come out in the summertime, especially out here. Come on, it's so freaking hot.
Mhm.
I love being outside, fall, winter, spring. In the summer, you're not gonna see me.
It's hot. It's hot.
You're not gonna see me. I'm inside. I'm not a good dad in the summertime. But, like my kids want to play. I'm like, not with me. I'll see you in fall. Like, don't come too close. You're lucky you even got a hug. So, you mentioned uh in the last thing you were talking about metabolism. Maybe it was a couple times ago. You mentioned metabolism. Um, how big of a player is that in weight loss? Like,
I
is
can
it is it is it not just calories in, calories out? Like, or is like does the metabolism, when somebody has a high metabolism, does that mean that they're burning more calories on average per day than somebody with a low metabolism? Is that what that means?
hmm
And how the frick?
high
Because I used to have a
metabolism.
super high metabolism, and now I don't.
Yes. So that's, I was going to say aging, but I'm going to say that's part of maturing. Um, yes, and that is part of activity as well. So our higher activity people, their metabolism is just, burning all the time. But I do believe it has a big impact. And what I've seen in clinical experience is I can tell you I've literally had patients that I've looked at their food log or what they've eaten, and I'm like, they should 100% be losing weight. They should be seeing weight loss with these levels, but it's the timing of when they're eating. So like I was mentioning earlier, what I see so frequently is that we get really busy and breakfast gets skipped. Caffeine, coffee, beverages start to hop in there. So then too, if we, people roll through Starbucks, they get like a Frappuccino or something, that might keep them going, but that is not what, the body needs during that time. So if we keep kind of, again, cruising through the day, staying really busy, and then later in the day, when we sit down and eat, then the body is like, oh, we're feasting. I want to hold on to this. This is some good stuff here. So I work with a lot of people where I will try to encourage them to start front loading their calories. or even with my patients living with diabetes, I'll have them try to front load their carbohydrates as well to, set up for a lighter evening meal so that when we go to bed, there's not like those calories or, carbs still absorbing. And then also during the daytime, if we're having those meals, that is another signal to the body that energy is coming in. So we can burn, we can use this energy.
So is that, when you say front loading, you mean just eating more calories earlier than saving them for later?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I asked a couple of my clients today, what do you want me to ask you? And that was one of them, because she's been dealing with, like, she's done keto in the past and did great, lost a lot of weight doing that diet. Now she's trying it again and it's not working. Nothing is working for her at the moment. And she's having a lot of trouble. It's very discouraging for her. She says she's eating right, that she should be in a calorie deficit. She's not exactly counting calories to the T, but she feels at least what she's eating should be causing her to lose weight. So
I've
yeah, I
actually
don't know what would.
had a handful of individuals that have done keto, had really good success with keto, but then kind of fallen off the wagon. And then it has been a struggle because they'll say they've tried to resume it and it just hasn't worked. But then they've said, okay, well, they're trying to kind of get back on track. So I have actually worked with a few individuals that have kind of had a similar experience with that.
Is there something you would do with these type of people in general who are like that one person you said she should be losing weight? You said just more calories earlier in the day. Is that what?
Yep. I would I'd be like, hey, what are we going to have for breakfast? Like, what can we start planning for, a breakfast food? You don't have to wake up and eat breakfast immediately, but let's try to do it within a couple hours of wake up,
Right.
Again, get that signal started, the energy is coming in.
Okay. Awesome. And then the last question I have is, can you balance hormones with food? Because I had a client today, she asked me, she's having, I guess her doctor told her she needed more estrogen or something, or she was low on estrogen, and said that the only way to do that is through medication. Is that true?
It really depends what the levels are. So if someone, there's going to be situations that, whether it's with thyroid or, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, those type of hormones that, yeah, we could include, some foods that are going to support the production or support those. But if there's such an imbalance, in certain times, it will be necessary to have some, type of intervention. Like I said, we can, there's things we can do to help support that depending on what they're experiencing. But yeah, if the level is too far off, some intervention is most likely needed.
Okay, awesome. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Sorry, my kids keep coming in here telling me they can't sleep.
Oh,
I'm like, go away. Get out of here.
you're like, tell me later, I'll be out.
Like, try to focus here. I'm so bad at doing two things at once. Like, maybe I'm not going to say that. It's just, I'm not going to be negative about it. But all right, dude, thank you so much for talking to me today. I think this interview is value packed. I hope people can get a ton of value from this. Where can people find you at if they're looking for advice or?
So come, I would love to get some people visiting me Instagram. So you can look for me, Julie Succo. My handle is JA Succo. My last name
spell that?
UCKOW. And then on TikTok, you can find me at julie.rdiva. That's RDIVA, that second part.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if people
Thank
have
you so much.
questions or like more things in particular, I would love to address those again too.
Yeah, I want to see some TikTok videos. Okay.
Yeah. I'll do some TikToks. I like it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Even like things like that. I would love suggestions. Like last week I did like an Instagram reel of like what I was meal prepping. So it's like, and like I had actually a lot of people were like, oh, that's cool, thanks for sharing that. So I'm like, great, what else, like what do you guys want to see? I'd love to make some more content like that.
Oh, I do have one more question actually. Where could we get some? This is one of my biggest issues around nutrition is all the conflicting information. Is there a place that people can go to get some trusted, possibly non-biased information that isn't promoting like a product? Because I know like milk is, I don't know, it's
I
like
know.
the marketing that happened around milk, even like was crazy to make people think that that is like a necessary part of your diet when I don't. I mean, is it? I don't even know. Like. So where can we get some trusted information that's possibly non-biased and not just marketing tactics?
Yes, that's a great question. So I always will say, we want to ask like, what's the source? Where is this coming from? To make sure it's a credible source. But I think it's also individual, like deciding like who you align with, and who you feel that, reflects your values, because I could direct you to, some different websites. Like Harvard actually has, I think it's like their nutrition, is it their I don't know, nutrition source. But like, so that's like one, like I kind of like, because I'll be like, okay, I feel like this is like going to be some fairly, credible, objective type of information here. I do like research a lot from the Cleveland Clinic, the Mayo Clinic as well. I think Healthline online is also a great resource. They have a lot of evidence-based articles and things on there as well.
Awesome.
The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, their website is eatright.org also. So those would be some different sources out there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, because I know people are just as confused as I am around these subjects.
I know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. Have a great night.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you guys for watching.